BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we'll be asking about that team in our August 16th preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And today, Dan, we are talking about the Early Longhorns.
Yeah, this is an interesting year for Early. It's fourth year under Coach Daniel Price, and really the first time where they've had kind of hit by heavy graduation losses, where they haven't had necessarily a really accomplished group of seniors that have already led the way for them. So this is going to be potentially a little bit of a rebuilding year for them. They lost 14 of their 26 lettermen from last year's team, returned 6 offensive, 5 defensive starters. They've got a nucleus back, but it's maybe not as experienced or as I guess accomplished as maybe some of the ones they've had in the past. So it's going to be really important, I think, for the kids that have kind of been leaders for them to really step up and kind of keep things going. But I think that's going to be kind of the intrigue of this year's season for Early is can they make that happen? But this team's going to have some questions to answer, certainly, and we'll talk about a few of those here in just a few minutes.
All right, before we jump into today's show, we want to remind you YouTubers to please hit the subscribe button. And once you've hit the subscribe button, please hit the little bell that pops up so that you'll get notifications from YouTube every time we come up with a new podcast here at Big Country Preps. That'll make it easy for you to follow along the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, which will feature one area team per day all the way up to the outset of Two-A-Days, which begin, if you can believe it, on July 31st, which is right around the corner.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's jump in and talk about the Early Longhorns. And like I said before, this is kind of the first season under Coach Price where you do kind of that question: is it a rebuilding year? Is it a reloading year? And that's, I think, the top question. Kind of the big question is: have they established their program enough under Coach Price, who's done a great job there? Have they established that program enough to where they can absorb the type of graduation losses that they just experienced, and still keep things rolling? Because they have really built a nice program there, have really built some very solid momentum. But this is kind of the first time in the last several years where you look and kind of have the numbers in terms of returning lettermen and lost lettermen kind of upside down for the first time. So this is going to be an interesting situation, I think. And that to me is the big question: is has this program gotten to a point where the expectations are such where the kids just say, okay, we had heavy graduation losses, the next group's going to step in and we're just going to keep this train rolling?
Well, they've got 12 lettermen back, which is it's not a great number for a 3A team. 12 lettermen isn't a lot. And they've got help coming up from a 3-7 JV team. So that's going to be the key issue. Can that bunch from a 3-7 JV step up, plug the holes, and contribute and help them to keep the momentum going? Because this team this is a burgeoning program. They've been playing a lot better than they have say 5 or 6 years ago. Last couple of years where we've seen quality football out of Early. Can this young group of JV players step up and contribute? And if they can, then we might see a surprise out of Early. On paper, it does look like a bit of a rebuild, and this is kind of the first situation we've seen for Coach Price out there at Early to be facing this sort of situation since he's been there.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're going to see that, I think, to some degree in this next question I'll ask, which is at the skill positions. They're blessed with a really good running back. Griffin Cheslock went over 1,100 yards last year. He's a known commodity, and that's a good thing to have. That's a good place to start offensively, to have a back that has his capabilities. But one thing that they're largely replacing is quarterback, where they've had no questions the last several years, with obviously Price's son, who did such a good job there. And then the receiver spot, they lost some really good receivers from last year's team. Among that group, Kai Houston's about the only one that has really you can look at and has some numbers you can lean on. So to me, that's a big question: is kind of what's their passing game going to look like? They're going to have to figure out the quarterback situation, and it looks like you got a couple of options with Rowan Price, his other son, and Weston Barton, a junior. So a couple of young kids who have an opportunity to maybe find some time there. And then the receiver position, what's that going to look like? It's going to be really interesting to see what their passing game looks like this year with some new kids in those roles.
All right, with that, we'll take a look at Early's schedule for 2023, the non-district portion first. August 25th, we'll see the Bangs Dragons travel to Early. After that, they'll face Toller, and that's going to be a really tough road date on September 1st at Toller. They host Comanche, another very tough date, on September 8th. Then they travel back-to-back to Hamilton on the 15th and to Burnett on the 22nd. That's a Class 4A Burnett team and a solid program, and then they have an open date before jumping into district. Not an easy non-district schedule.
Oh, yeah, a very tough non-district schedule to get them ready for district, which it's going to make these young kids grow up quickly. But you look at the district schedule; they open up with back-to-back home games on October 6th and October 13th against Ballinger and Brady, respectively, and then they go to San Angelo Grape Creek on the 20th of October before hosting Wall on the 27th and wrapping up their district schedule November 3rd at San Angelo TLCA. So, not a terribly I mean, not as difficult a district schedule as maybe it's been in the past. That's one thing I think will be interesting is you look at that district, you've got Wall, who looks like they're going to be loaded, and then for everyone else, it's kind of there's a lot of question marks for all the other teams. So there's going to be, I think, it's going to be pretty open for those 2, 3, and 4 playoff spots. And I think that's a benefit for a young early team, is you're still, even though you're going to maybe be learning on the fly some this year, there's still an opportunity to go and maybe even grab that 2 seed again.
All right, with that, it's just about time to wrap up tonight's edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Early Longhorns. But before we do that, we want to remind you that on August 16th, that's the big day here at Big Country Preps. That's when we release our annual preseason football preview, which is the most comprehensive look at area football of any media source you're going to see in Texas. We'll have more than 40 team previews, more than 40 player features. We'll have predictions. We'll have columns. We'll have videos. And nobody's going to top us as far as Big Country coverage prior to the season. Sign up August 16th.
In the meantime, thank you for joining us for this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series, and make sure you come back tomorrow when we will be talking about the Wall Hawks here at BigCountryPreps.com.